I'm Claire Richardson, 32, a senior marketing director. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the marble floor of my corner office as I stared at the resume in my hands. The name at the top made my stomach lurch, Jessica Chin, but it was the essay attached that made the world tilt sideways. Word for word, sentence for sentence, it was mine. The scholarship essay I had poured my heart into 15 years ago, the one that was supposed to change everything, the one that had been stolen from me and left me scrambling to pay for community college while working 3 jobs. The sound of ceramic fragments scattering across the floor seemed to echo forever in the silence of my office. My assistant's voice crackled through the intercom, asking if everything was okay, but I couldn't form words. The familiar ache in my chest, the one I thought I'd buried under years of clawing my way up from nothing, came flooding back with a vengeance. How was this possible? How was she here, applying for a position at my company, using the same stolen words that had destroyed my future once before? Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you're hooked already, a like and subscribe will keep these stories coming. I set the resume down with trembling hands and walked to my floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the city sprawl below. 15 years. 15 years since Jessica Chun had smiled at me in our high school library, asking to just take a quick look at my scholarship essay for inspiration. I'd been so naive, so trusting. We'd been friends since middle school, or so I thought. I'd handed over my laptop without hesitation, watching her scroll through the document I'd spent months perfecting. The memory hit me like a physical blow. The smell of old books and industrial carpet cleaner in that library. The way Jessica's perfectly manicured nails had clicked against my keyboard as she just skimmed my work. The grateful smile she'd given me, promising she'd write something completely different. 2 weeks later, I'd received the rejection letter. While your essay showed promise, we've already selected a candidate whose submission demonstrated exceptional originality and insight. The same day, Jessica had burst into our AP English class, practically glowing as she announced her full-ride scholarship to Northwestern. I'd confronted her that afternoon in the parking lot, my voice shaking with rage and disbelief. She looked me straight in the eye and denied everything, her voice steady and convincing. Claire, you're being paranoid. Lots of essays have similar themes. Maybe you should have tried harder to make yours more unique. The gaslighting had been so smooth, so practiced, that for a moment I'd actually doubted myself. But I knew every word of that essay by heart. I'd written it about my grandmother's immigration story, about resilience and hope in the face of impossible odds. It was deeply personal, uniquely mine, and Jessica had stolen it all. My phone buzzed, jolting me back to the present. A text from my assistant. Ms. Chun is here for her 2 p.m. interview. Should I send her up? I stared at the message, my heart hammering against my ribs. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, the senior marketing director at one of Chicago's most prestigious firms, about to interview the woman who'd stolen my future. The woman who'd gone to Northwestern on my words while I'd worked nights at a diner to pay for community college classes. But I'd made it anyway. Despite her betrayal, despite the setbacks, despite having to take the long road through community college and state school, working full-time while earning my degree. I'd clawed my way up through sheer determination, and now I sat in a corner office with a view of Lake Michigan, making more money than I'd ever dreamed possible. The question was, what was I going to do about it? I picked up the resume again, studying Jessica's carefully crafted career trajectory. Northwestern graduate, check. Marketing positions at respectable firms, check. But there were gaps, inconsistencies that my trained eye caught immediately. Her references seemed sparse, and her recent work history showed a pattern of short-term positions. Something wasn't adding up. My intercom buzzed again. Ms. Richardson? Ms. Chun is getting a bit anxious. Should I send her up? I said, my voice steadier than I felt. And Sarah? Hold all my calls for the next hour. I smoothed my blazer and sat behind my desk, the stolen essay spread out before me like evidence in a trial. The elevator dinged in the distance, followed by the soft click of heels on marble. My mouth went dry as the footsteps grew closer. A gentle knock on my door. Come in. The door opened and there she was. Jessica Chun, 15 years older, but still carrying herself with that same confident air that had fooled everyone in high school. Her smile was bright and professional as she stepped into my office, her eyes scanning the impressive space before landing on me. For a split second, her composure faltered. Recognition flickered across her features, quickly replaced by that practiced smile I remembered so well. "Claire," she said, her voice pitched higher than normal. "Claire Richardson? Oh my God, I had no idea you worked here. What a small world." I didn't stand, didn't smile, just watched her squirm as the silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken history. "Please sit down, Jessica," I said finally, gesturing to the chair across from my desk. "We have a lot to discuss." She settled into the chair, crossing her legs and arranging her portfolio with nervous precision. "I have to say, this is such a surprise. I mean, when I saw the company name, I never imagined that I'd be the one interviewing you." I finished, my voice cool. "Yes, I imagine that is quite a shock." Something in my tone made her pause. The bright smile dimmed slightly, and I saw her eyes dart to the papers on my desk. She couldn't see what they were from her angle, but some instinct seemed to warn her that this wasn't going to be the reunion she was pretending to want. "So," I continued, leaning back in my chair, "tell me about yourself, Jessica. Start from the beginning. I'm particularly interested in how you got your start, your scholarship to Northwestern, for instance." The color drained from her face so quickly I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Well, you know how it is. High school feels like a lifetime ago. She laughed nervously, fidgeting with her portfolio strap. "I was just lucky, I guess. Right place, right time." "Lucky," I repeated, tasting the word like poison. That's one way to put it. The tension in the room was suffocating now. Jessica's professional mask was slipping, revealing the panic underneath. She knew. She knew that I knew, and she was trapped in my office with nowhere to run. I picked up the essay from my desk, watching her eyes widen as she recognized it. "You know, Jessica, I've been in this business long enough to spot plagiarism from a mile away. It's amazing how some people think they can build their entire careers on stolen work." Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Claire, I don't know what you're implying, but—" "I'm not implying anything," I said, standing slowly. "I'm stating a fact." The sound of my office door slamming shut echoed through the building as Jessica Chin bolted from her chair, but she was too late. I was already reaching for my phone to call security, and in her panicked flight, she'd left behind her portfolio, which had spilled open to reveal something that made my blood run cold. The portfolio lay scattered across my office floor like evidence at a crime scene, its contents spilled in Jessica's desperate flight. But it wasn't just her resume and references that had tumbled out. It was a manila folder marked personal projects that made my hands shake as I knelt to examine it. Inside were photocopies of essays, application letters, and personal statements. Dozens of them, all in different handwriting, all with different names at the top, but as I read through them, a horrifying pattern emerged. These weren't Jessica's work. They were stolen pieces from other students, other dreamers who'd trusted the wrong person with their futures. My throat constricted as I recognized a writing style here, a turn of phrase there. One essay about overcoming poverty to pursue medicine was signed Marcus Williams, but I remembered that story. It belonged to Marcus Washington, a kid from my high school who'd worked at the same diner I did, saving every penny for college. He'd never gotten his scholarship. Last I'd heard, he was still working construction, his dreams of medical school long abandoned. The smell of old paper and desperation seemed to rise from the documents as I spread them across my desk. Jessica hadn't just stolen from me. She'd built an entire career on the backs of other people's hopes and struggles. The scope of her betrayal was breathtaking. My phone buzzed with a text from security. Subject left the building. "Want us to pursue?" I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to let her run, to disappear back into whatever hole she'd crawled out of. But the faces of all those stolen dreams, Marcus, myself, and God knows how many others, flashed through my mind. No. Let her go.
For now.
I needed time to think, to plan. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice for everyone she'd wronged. The afternoon sun slanted through my windows, casting long shadows across the scattered evidence. I called my assistant and told her to cancel my remaining meetings, then locked my office door and began photographing every document. Each page felt like a weight settling on my chest, the magnitude of Jessica's crimes becoming clearer with every stolen word. My phone rang, startling me from my documentation. The caller ID showed my mother's number. "Hi, Mom." "Claire, honey, you sound stressed. Everything okay at work?" I almost laughed at the understatement. "Just a complicated day. How are you?" "Oh, you know me. Same old routine. But I was calling because I ran into Mrs. Chun at the grocery store today. You remember Jessica's mother? She was going on and on about how successful Jessica's become, how she's interviewing for some big position in Chicago. Isn't that funny?" I told her my Claire works in Chicago too, and she got this strange look on her face. The blood in my veins turned to ice. What kind of look? Like she'd seen a ghost. She mumbled something about small worlds and hurried away. It was the oddest thing. You girls used to be such good friends in high school. Friends. The word tasted bitter in my mouth. "Mom, I need to ask you something. Do you remember my scholarship essay? The one for Northwestern?" There was a pause. "Of course I do. You worked so hard on that piece about Grandma Rose's journey from Mexico. I was so proud of you for sharing her story." "Why do you ask?" "My grandmother's story. Not some generic tale of immigration, but the specific, heartbreaking account of how Rosa had walked across the desert with nothing but hope and a photograph of the family she'd left behind. How she'd worked in the fields until her hands bled, saving every penny to bring her children to America. How she died just months before I started college, never knowing that her granddaughter would use her sacrifice as the foundation for her own dreams. Dreams that Jessica had stolen and claimed as her own. "Claire, you still there?"
"Yeah, Mom."
"I'm here. Listen, I have to go, but I love you." "Love you too, sweetheart. Take care of yourself." I hung up and stared at the documents spread before me. The personal statement that had gotten Jessica into Northwestern wasn't just plagiarized. It was a desecration of my grandmother's memory. She'd taken Rose's pain, her courage, her love, and twisted it into a lie that had opened doors for someone who'd never known real struggle. The rage that filled me was different now.
Cleaner.
More focused. This wasn't about teenage betrayal anymore. This was about honoring the people whose stories had been stolen and perverted for someone else's gain. I pulled up Jessica's LinkedIn profile on my computer, studying her career trajectory with new eyes. The gaps I'd noticed earlier made sense now. She'd probably been fired from multiple positions when her lack of genuine talent became apparent. The stolen essays had gotten her in the door, but she couldn't fake competence forever. Her current status showed seeking new opportunities, which meant she was desperate. Desperate enough to apply for a position at my company, despite the risk of running into me. She must have been counting on the years that had passed, hoping I wouldn't recognize her or wouldn't care enough to cause trouble. She'd miscalculated badly. My computer chimed with an email notification. The sender's name made my stomach drop. Jade Chen, marketing@gmail.com. "Claire, I know how this must look, but you have to understand, I was young and stupid. We all make mistakes. I've built a good life since then, and I have a family now. 2 kids who depend on me. Please don't let something that happened 15 years ago destroy their future. I'm willing to discuss this like adults. Maybe we can work something out." Jessica. The audacity was staggering. Even now, caught red-handed with evidence of serial plagiarism, she was trying to manipulate me. Playing the victim, invoking her children as shields, offering to work something out, as if this were a business negotiation rather than a reckoning for years of theft and lies. I started typing a response, then stopped. Words weren't enough for this. Jessica had spent 15 years profiting from other people's pain, and a simple email exchange wasn't going to balance those scales. I needed to be smarter than that. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Marcus? It's Claire Richardson. From high school. Yes, I know it's been forever. Listen, I need to ask you about something important. Do you remember your scholarship essay? The one about wanting to be a doctor? What do you mean? How did I know about that? The conversation that followed confirmed my worst fears. Marcus had never told anyone about his essay except Jessica, who'd offered to help him polish it the week before the deadline. He'd trusted her with his most personal story about watching his diabetic father slowly lose his sight because they couldn't afford proper medical care, about his determination to become the doctor his community needed. Jessica had stolen that too. By the time I hung up, I had a list of 6 other names, classmates who'd confided their dreams to Jessica Chen and watched those dreams slip away when their scholarship applications were mysteriously rejected. All of them had trusted her. All of them had been betrayed. The sun was setting over Lake Michigan, painting my office in shades of gold and crimson. I sat in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the evidence of Jessica's crimes, and felt something cold and determined settle in my chest. She wanted to discuss this like adults?
Fine.
But it would be on my terms, in my time, and with my rules. I opened my laptop and began typing an email, but not to Jessica. This one was addressed to the Northwestern University Alumni Association, with copies to the Scholarship Committee and the Academic Integrity Board. Dear committee members, I am writing to report a case of scholarship fraud that has come to my attention. As I typed, my phone buzzed with another message from Jessica. Claire, please. I'm begging you. I'll do anything. I glanced at the message and kept typing. She was right about one thing: she would do anything. But so would I. The elevator dinged in the distance, and I heard footsteps approaching my office. Heavy, urgent footsteps that didn't belong to my assistant. I looked up from my laptop to see a security guard standing in my doorway, his face grim. Ms. Richardson? I'm sorry to bother you, but we have a situation. The woman from earlier, Jessica Chen? She's back, and she's not alone. Through my office windows, I could see Jessica in the parking lot below, pacing frantically beside a black sedan. A man in an expensive suit stood next to her, tall, silver-haired, with a kind of commanding presence that screamed lawyer. Even from 20 floors up, I could see Jessica gesturing wildly, her composure completely shattered. She's demanding to speak with you, the security guard continued. Says it's urgent. The man with her claims to be her attorney and is threatening legal action if we don't allow access. I saved my email draft and stood, smoothing my skirt. Tell them I'll be down in 5 minutes. And call building security. I want this conversation recorded. The guard nodded and left. I gathered the stolen essays into a neat stack, slipped them into a folder, and took the elevator down to the lobby. My heels clicked against the marble floor as I approached the glass doors where Jessica and her lawyer waited. She looked terrible. Her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, and her hands shook as she clutched her purse. The confident woman who'd walked into my office hours earlier was gone, replaced by someone desperate and cornered. I pushed through the doors into the cool evening air. Jessica, I see you brought reinforcement. The lawyer stepped forward, extending his hand. Ms. Richardson, I'm David Kellerman, Ms. Chen's attorney. I understand there's been some sort of misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I said, ignoring his outstretched hand. Your client is a serial plagiarist who's built her entire career on stolen work. The only question is how many people she's victimized over the years. Jessica's face crumpled. Claire, please, you have to listen to me. I was 18. I was scared and stupid, and I made a terrible mistake. But I've spent 15 years trying to make up for it. I've donated to scholarships. I've mentored students. With money you earned using my grandmother's story, I cut her off. Tell me, Jessica, when you were living in your Northwestern dorm room, when you were networking at alumni events, when you were landing your first job because of that prestigious degree, did you ever think about Rosa Martinez? Did you ever wonder what it felt like for her granddaughter to watch her dreams disappear because someone stole her voice? The lawyer cleared his throat. Ms. Richardson, while I understand your frustration, the statute of limitations on any potential academic fraud has nothing to do with what I'm planning, I said, my voice deadly calm. This isn't about legal action, Mr. Kellerman. This is about truth. I pulled out my phone and showed them the screen. I've been busy since you left, Jessica. I've contacted 6 of our former classmates, Marcus Washington, Sarah Kim, David Torres, and 3 others. All of them remember sharing their scholarship essays with you. All of them remember being rejected while you somehow managed to win multiple awards. Jessica's knees buckled, and she grabbed onto the lawyer's arm for support. You can't prove anything. Those essays, they're just similar themes. Lots of students write about overcoming adversity. Word for word. I opened the folder and pulled out Marcus's medical school essay. Listen to this. I watched my father's world grow smaller each day as diabetes stole his sight, one shadow at a time. In that darkness, I found my calling, to be the light that guides others back to health. Beautiful words, aren't they? Except Marcus Washington wrote them, not you. The color drained from Jessica's face. How did you get the original? Marcus kept copies of everything. He's a construction foreman now, by the way. Never did get to medical school. But he's very interested in seeing justice done. The lawyer was frantically taking notes. Ms. Richardson, if you're planning to go public with these allegations, I should warn you that defamation laws don't apply when you're telling the truth, I finished. And I have documentation for everything. Jessica suddenly lunged forward, grabbing my arm. Claire, please. I have children. My daughter is applying to colleges next year. If this comes out, it'll destroy her chances. She's innocent in all this. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her tear-streaked face. For a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy that had made me trust her in the first place. Then I thought about Marcus, working construction in the heat because his dreams had been stolen. About Sarah Kim, who'd wanted to be a teacher but ended up in retail because she couldn't afford the education degree. About all the futures that had been derailed by Jessica's selfishness. You should have thought about your daughter before you built your life on lies, I said, gently removing her hand from my arm. But don't worry, I'm not interested in destroying an innocent child's future. Unlike you, I have principles. I turned to walk back into the building, but Jessica's voice stopped me. What do you want? She called out, desperation making her voice crack. Money? I'll pay back every scholarship dollar. A public apology? I'll do it. Just tell me what you want. I turned back slowly, studying her face in the glow of the streetlights. She was offering me everything I'd dreamed of hearing for 15 years: acknowledgement, apology, restitution. But standing there, looking at the woman who'd stolen my future, I realized something surprising. I didn't want her apology. I didn't want her money. What I wanted was something far more valuable. I want you to understand what you took from us, I said quietly. Not just the scholarships or the opportunities. You stole our stories, Jessica. Our pain, our hope, our family histories. You turned our most personal truths into lies. I pulled out my phone again and opened the email I'd been drafting. So here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, I'm sending this report to Northwestern, along with copies of all the stolen essays. I'm also forwarding it to the companies where you've worked and to the scholarship foundations you defrauded. Jessica's lawyer stepped forward. Ms. Richardson, I strongly advise you to reconsider. This could be seen as harassment or even extortion if you're demanding. I'm not demanding anything, I said. I'm simply ensuring that the truth comes to light. Jessica built her career on stolen foundations. It's time for that house of cards to fall. Jessica was sobbing now, her professional mask completely shattered. Please, Claire. I'm begging you. I'll resign from every position I hold. I'll never work in marketing again. Just don't destroy my family. I looked at her for a long moment, this woman who'd haunted my dreams for 15 years. She was smaller than I remembered, more fragile. The power dynamic had completely reversed. Now I was the one with control, with the ability to destroy someone's future with a few keystrokes. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, it just felt empty. Your family won't be destroyed, Jessica, I said finally. But your career built on lies? That ends now. I turned and walked back toward the building, but her voice followed me one last time. I'm sorry, she screamed, her voice echoing off the glass towers around us. I'm so sorry, Claire. I was young and scared, and I made a terrible mistake. Please. I paused at the doors, my hand on the handle. Without turning around, I spoke loud enough for her to hear. You weren't sorry when you watched me work 3 jobs to pay for community college. You weren't sorry when you used my grandmother's story to open doors for yourself. You weren't sorry for 15 years while you built a life on stolen dreams. You're only sorry now because you got caught. I walked back into the building, leaving Jessica and her lawyer in the parking lot. The security guard was waiting for me in the lobby. Everything all right, Ms. Richardson? Perfect, I said and meant it. Back in my office, I sat down at my computer and finished the email I'd been writing. But as my finger hovered over the send button, I found myself hesitating. The power to destroy Jessica's life was literally at my fingertips. One click, and her world would come crashing down just as mine had 15 years ago. But then I thought about the kind of person I wanted to be. The kind of person my grandmother Rosa had raised me to be. She'd faced impossible odds with grace and dignity, never letting bitterness poison her heart even when the world seemed determined to break her. I deleted the email. Instead, I opened a new message and began typing a different kind of letter, one addressed to the scholarship foundations that Jessica had defrauded. But this time, I wasn't seeking to destroy her. I was seeking to create something better. Dear Foundation Directors, I am writing to propose the establishment of a new scholarship program, the Rosa Martinez Memorial Fund for first-generation college students. This fund would be specifically designed to support students whose families have overcome significant hardships. I worked through the night, crafting a proposal that would honor my grandmother's memory while helping students like Marcus, like Sarah, like the 18-year-old version of myself who trusted the wrong person with her dreams. By dawn, I had a comprehensive plan for a scholarship program that would be funded by my own success, the success I'd built despite Jessica's betrayal, not because of it. It would help dozens of students every year, students whose stories deserve to be heard and honored rather than stolen. As the sun rose over Lake Michigan, painting my office in shades of gold and hope, I sent the proposal to 3 major foundations. Then I picked up my phone and called Marcus. Marcus? It's Claire again. I have a proposition for you. How would you feel about going back to school? I know a scholarship program that's looking for its first recipient. The conversation that followed was everything I'd hoped for. Marcus's voice broke when I told him about the Rosa Martinez Memorial Fund, about how his stolen dreams were going to become the foundation for helping others achieve theirs. Jessica Chun had stolen my essay, but she couldn't steal my character. She'd taken my words, but she couldn't take my grandmother's legacy. And in the end, that made all the difference. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Thank you for not destroying my family. I'm resigning from all my positions and entering therapy. I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but I want you to know that I'll spend the rest of my life trying to earn the forgiveness I don't deserve.
J.
I read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But sometimes, from the ashes of betrayal, something better can grow. I looked out at the city waking up below, at all the dreamers heading to work and school and interviews, carrying their hopes and stories with them. Somewhere out there was the next Marcus, the next Sarah, the next 18-year-old Claire who needed someone to believe in their dreams. Thanks to Jessica's betrayal, I was now in a position to be that someone. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to steal my future, Jessica had inadvertently given me a better one. I'd learned to fight for what I wanted, to build something real from nothing, to turn pain into purpose. My grandmother Rosa would have been proud. As I gathered my things to head home, I took one last look at the folder of stolen essays on my desk. Tomorrow, I would return them to their rightful authors, not as evidence of crimes, but as proof that their stories mattered, that their dreams had value, that someone finally cared enough to give them back their voices. Jessica Chun had taught me an important lesson 15 years ago, though not the one she'd intended. She'd shown me that some people will steal your dreams if you let them. But she'd also shown me something else, that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so beautiful, so meaningful, so lasting that it transforms the very pain they caused you into a force for good in the world. I walked out of my office and into the morning light, ready to change some lives, starting with my own.